Okay,
So we'll just the photos. Thank you, photographers. So with your permission, I'll begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this post-policy press conference. With us today, we have respected Governor Shri Shaktikant Das.
I had said last time, just say governor.
Okay, sir. We have Shri Shaktikant Das, Governor Reserve Bank of India, with us, along with Dr. Michael Patra, Shri M. Rajeshwar Rao, Shri T. Ravi Shankar, and Shri Swaminathan J. Along with us also are executive directors, Dr. O.P. Mal and Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, and my colleague from MPD and the secretariats. So we have 22 media persons present here, and as is our want, we will first go with your opening remarks, and then we'll go for the press conference. Over to you, sir.
Uh, Thank you for being here. Good morning. You have already heard the statement. It's been uploaded also. Uh, I just, as a part of initial remarks, I would like to make 9 points. First, domestic economic activity continues to be strong. We expect the real GDP to grow by 7% in the next financial year, 24-25. Second point, CPI inflation is moderating with intermittent interruptions and spikes. We have to remain vigilant about the incoming data and the outlook. Our endeavor to achieve 4% inflation on a durable basis has to continue. Third, globally, markets are front-running central banks in anticipation of policy pivots. But central banks remain apprehensive and await a more durable alignment of inflation with the targets. Four, liquidity will be actively managed by the Reserve Bank. Five, our multi-pronged, proactive, and calibrated policies have worked well to maintain and strengthen macroeconomic and financial stability. Six, systemic, sectoral, and institution-specific signs of stress are being proactively monitored and acted upon wherever necessary. Seven, let me reiterate that good governance, robust risk management, sound compliance culture, and protection of customers' interest are the hallmarks of the Reserve Bank's approach to the safety and stability of the financial system and individual financial institutions. Regulated entities must accord the highest priority to these aspects. This is the seventh point. The eighth point is the external sector of the economy remains resilient. The current account deficit is expected to be eminently manageable. 9, the exchange rate of the Indian rupee has remained stable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those opening remarks. And may I request all of you to wait for your turn to be called, and request also to stick to one question. And if we have time, we'll go for the other or second or third question. So I'll begin by inviting Lata Venkatesh from CNBC TV 18.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Yogesh. Uh, so I'm a little confusion about whether you are distinguishing between liquidity and your stance. You have mentioned in 3 places that you're not that the entire rate hike has not been fully transmitted. So I assume you want more hike transmitted. But separately, you have said that you will manage liquidity. Para 21 in great detail, that you will manage liquidity with a bunch of instruments. Should we understand, therefore, that unlike a majority of the last 5 months when call was closer to 6.75, you will be more like you were in the last 1 week, where you will give long-term liquidity through repo and adjust for short-term, which is keep call rate closer to 6.5. Is that what you are trying to say, that I'll do that, but I want more interest rate hikes to happen.
Yeah.
And sir, since you have dwelt twice on this good governance, I must add, are you trying to say that you will not give Paytm any further timeline to set them right? Does Feb 29 stand? Is that what
So
we
there
should
are two
understand?
questions actually. Two questions. So please ask one question each. The first part of the question, I would request Deputy Governor Michael Patra to reply. The second part, I would request Deputy Governor Swaminathan to reply. Go ahead.
As Governor has clarified in his statement, the stance is all about the future course of policy rates. Sorry. Now, liquidity is endogenous to the rate. When the rate is the chief instrument of monetary policy, liquidity follows the rate. You have to move liquidity to achieve a certain rate. So our objective is to keep the repo rate, keep the weighted average call rate around the repo rate. But there are times when there are temporary drivers of autonomous liquidity, like government balances, which go through tectonic shifts, and market participants take time to adjust. Even they are unsure about the future direction of this. So that is why sometimes the call rate goes to where it went. But you saw that we were nimble in our actions and we brought it down to the repo rate. That is our endeavor. Yeah.
You were nimble after 5 months. So I'm asking, will you be like the previous 5
No,
months?
that is-
Or will you be like the last 5 days?
No, that is not correct, because at the time when the rates were up, we allowed market participants to take what liquidity they wanted from us through our standing facilities. And we did the main operation every 14th day. So it was not that we let it go, but it was the market participants still, you saw the reactions to the VRRR, they're unwilling to let go because they're unsure about how balances will move.
Yeah, as you know, as a matter of policy, we don't comment on individual entity or actions that we initiate in such cases. But that anyway, since this question is on the uppermost of mind of most of you, I think I would like to say 2-3 things, essentially to set the context. While we don't want to be discussing the individual details here because that will not be proper. In terms of context, as you all know, that this is a supervisory action on a regulated entity for a persistent non-compliance. Second, such supervisory actions are invariably preceded by months and at times years of bilateral engagement, where we not only pointing out the deficiencies, but also provide more than adequate time for them to take corrective action. Third, of course, is in terms of, as a regulator, it's incumbent upon us to protect the interest of the ultimate consumer and thereby protecting the stability of the financial system. So these actions have to be seen in that particular context. Coming to the second part of your question, what lies ahead? You know, as part of MPC, we don't give a forecast in these matters. So I think you will have to wait. And of course, feedback we have been getting, we'll work on. And as a responsible regulator, suitable steps will be taken to ensure that the customer inconvenience, if any, is minimized. So we will take care. I think with that, we can give a rest to this question and then move on to MPC is my request. Thank you.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Govardhan Rangan from Economic Times.
So thank you, sir. So good afternoon, Governor. For the rate decision, or rather, the status quo, you specifically mentioned that the transmission of 250 basis points is still continuing. So the bankers say that the deposit rates have already gone up by 250 basis points, and the lending rates have also gone up. So what, in your mind, is the actual transmission that has not happened, and how much is that? And what is the benchmark that you're looking at to conclude that the transmission has happened? Thank you.
Okay, again, like the previous questions, I would request, I think, DG Swaminathan, supplemented by DG Michael Patra, to reply to that question. Let there be wider participation. I don't want to monopolize all the answers. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. See, as far as the transmission in a hiking pace, as we have always seen in the past, the rates on deposit side, the resets much faster, and they get passed on. And as we have seen, deposit rates have almost played out. While on the lending side, it does take time to pass for two critical reasons in our assessment. There are two major reasons. One is that, uh, the proportion of loans that are benchmarked externally, what we call EBLR linked loans, is still less than 50%. So where the transmission could be instant is only where the EBLR comes into play. In case of other instruments, other benchmarks like MCLR or base rates or fixed rate loans, it does take time to transmit. So that is the precise reason why we still see that transmission is fully not in place. The second, also in a hiking phase, we have seen banks in their anxiety to maintain their market share in the incremental credit also adjust their margins so as not to lose their market share in the incremental credit. So that also impedes a complete transmission in terms of the effective interest rate. So I hope as we understood from the context of these two parameters. Thank you.
Anything you would like to supplement? No.
I'll move on to Mr. Ankur Mishra from ET Now.
Mike.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. I would like to ask a question once again on the persistent issue. We understand there has been meeting with Paytm officials and Reserve Bank of India. And what transpired in that, I know I don't want to know the exact details, but from the financial system point of view, the company has been claiming that they have taken all the remedial measures and all the efforts are being made so that there is minimal or no impact of customers. So from that point of view, is there any remedial measure which has been suggested by Reserve Bank of India?
This is again a matter of bilateral discussion, so I don't think that will be proper for us to discuss it in this forum. So as I said, discussing on individual entities will not be very proper, giving granular details in this matter. So we are seized of the issue, and as we take steps, we will keep the media and public certainly informed. Thank you.
You see, as the Deputy Governor has already commented, I mean, sufficient time, I'm again saying in a general sense, not specific to this case. We give sufficient time, we give sufficient time to every regulated entity, every entity that is supervised by the Reserve Bank to comply with the requirements, the regulatory requirements. We give sufficient time, and sometimes, as he pointed out, sometimes it may even look more than sufficient time. And we would not like to act, we are a responsible regulator. We are a responsible supervisor. If everything had been complied, I'm talking about in a general sense, why should we act? I mean, after all, we have a responsibility. It's a responsible institution, RBI. So that's how it is. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा जीवन भाव सर, ऑल इंडिया रेडियो.
नमस्कार सर. पिछले कुछ सालों में, पिछले कुछ महीनों में कुछ बैंकों ने अपने लेंडिंग रेट्स कम किए हैं, लेकिन जो कम किए हुए रेट्स का जो बेनिफिट्स है वो नए कस्टमर्स को दिया जा रहा है. पुराने कस्टमर्स अभी भी हायर रेट्स पे लेंडिंग रेट्स पे कर रहे हैं. तो इसके लिए ये पैरिटी लाने के लिए आरबीआई कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शंस इशू करेगी या कुछ बैंकों के साथ टेकअप करेगी?
ये जो इंटरेस्ट रेट्स हैं जो नए कस्टमर्स को मिलता है, लेकिन एग्जिस्टिंग कस्टमर्स को भी ये फायदा होता है. जब वो रेट रीसेट होता है तब एग्जिस्टिंग कस्टमर्स को ये फायदा मिलता है. तो पॉलिसी चेंज की जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि जो गाइडलाइंस हैं फ्लोटिंग रेट इंटरेस्ट पे, उसके आधार पे दोनों एग्जिस्टिंग कस्टमर्स और नए कस्टमर्स दोनों को ये फायदा होएगा. थैंक यू.
धन्यवाद सर. अब मैं आमंत्रित करता हूं आनंद अधिकारी, बिजनेस टुडे.
Good afternoon, sir. I'll also make an attempt on Paytm. DZ Swaminathan talked about this persistent non-compliance, and he also said in such cases months and years of bilateral engagement. My question is, why did RBI not consider appointing a director on the board of Paytm when you knew about this persistent non-compliance issues?
See, as a regulator, we have various tools in the kitty. And it's not necessary that every single tool will be deployed in every single situation. That we make our own assessment to the scale and proportionality of the issue, as well as the tool that we will have to use at different points in time. So one size fits all kind of solution may not work in such situations. So, I would like to stop there rather than, trying to elaborate on that. We may use certain tools, may not use certain tools, but it is after a due consideration that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Anup Roy from Bloomberg.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the budget was non-inflationary and the government really brought down the fiscal deficit, etc., and the bond yields have fallen. So the government probably wants interest rates to come down, but RBI probably is keeping interest rates high. You're saying the transmission is not complete, etc. So is there a lack of coordination, sir?
No, I mean, has the government said anywhere that they want the
No.
interest rates to be brought down? So therefore, it's a very speculative proposition. So I cannot reply to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll invite Shyama Mishra from Doordarshan.
Good afternoon, sir. So it's again on Paytm. The situation, as we describe it, that Paytm is known as one of the pioneers of fintech. Coming to this situation, do you see this as a worrisome situation for the entire sector? And what lesson would you like to highlight for any similar, future companies?
Now, let me sort of provide some broad guidance on this Paytm issue, because there have been at least 4 or 5 questions till now, and there could be many more questions. So let me put the entire thing, let me put the record straight. Now, you said that worry about the system and all that. There is no worry about the system at the moment. Here we are talking about a specific institution, a specific payment bank. As the Deputy Governor Deputy Governor Swaminathan has already explained, he has provided several details. Similarly, I also don't want to comment on a specific case. But in this context, I would like to make some general observations, not with specific reference to Paytm as such, but some general observations which includes all our regulated entities. So all our regulated entities does not exclude Paytm. It is applicable to all the regulated entities. And in fact, which one? No, the advice is the camera should not focus on this because I have written so many things. This is a private part, so the cameras can focus perhaps on my face. So, but let me thank you. I think that's very agile on his part. So let me focus on make some general points, and I would like to make some about 6 or 7 points. Now, first is that over the last few years, as all of you are aware, we have significantly deepened our supervisory systems, approach, and methods. Number 2, our emphasis is always on, as the Deputy Governor has pointed out, our emphasis is always on bilateral engagement with the regulated entity. And in that engagement, we give focus on, and we are completely focused on nudging the regulated entity to take corrective action. Let me rephrase it. For you to make note, our emphasis is always on bilateral engagement with the regulated entities with focus on nudging them for corrective action. And sufficient time is given for undertaking such corrective action. The third point, when such constructive engagement which we undertake, when that does not work, so when such constructive engagement does not work, or when the regulated entity does not take effective action, we go for imposing supervisory or business restrictions. Number 4, such restrictions which we impose are always proportionate to the gravity of the situation. Please take note that such restrictions are proportionate to the gravity of the situation. Number 5, all our actions, being a responsible regulator, being a responsible supervisor, All our actions are in the best interest of systemic stability and protection of depositors or customers' interest. These aspects cannot be compromised. Individual entities should be mindful of these aspects for their long-term success. Number 6, over the last few days, we have received a lot of queries, clarifications from various quarters, including members of the public. You have raised a few questions today. So we have noted all these questions and clarifications which have been sought from us. And based on that, we will be issuing a FAQ sometime next week. So that should address all these questions and clarifications which are being raised by you and which have been raised in the public domain and raised bilaterally with us by various from various quarters. Number 7, finally and emphatically, let me stress and let me emphatically state that the Reserve Bank is and will continue to encourage and support innovation and technology in the financial sector. Let there not be any doubt about Reserve Bank's commitment to promote fintechs, to promote innovation, to promote technology in the financial system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I will move on to Mr. Dinesh Unnikrishnan from Money Control.
Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you, Governor. I have a very short related question, sir. You in your remarks, you stressed about the good governance and sound compliance. And this is not something that you're speaking for the first time. You have been emphasizing this part. And the role of the boards in the regulated entities is extremely critical, as you have pointed out. What is your view on the role of the Paytm board? Because, it didn't happen all of a sudden. Since 2021, RBI has been alerting the regulatory breaches. And as per the process, the RBI on-site inspection report is passed to the ACB and the board for corrective actions. So probably, if they had acted on time, things would not have worsened to this level. So why is the regulator silent on the role of the board while the reasons for this action is quite evident?
You see, typically, we do not share such granular information. We have been engaged with the institution, with the entity for quite some time. And within that, with whom we interacted and how it was, such granular details, it will not be appropriate on our part to share those details.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Vishwanath Nair from NDTV Profit.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much, Yogesh. I'll give a little respite and move to another topic. But on CBDCs, you're talking about introducing additional programmability.
No, we don't need any respite.
The topic
so,
of
go ahead. But the point is, the same question is coming up. And also, in as much as we are issuing a FAQ, so I would request, if you have still some clarification or something on which you want clarity, I think you can send it bilaterally to us. Directly, you can mail it to us. We will see to what extent we can address that question. Yeah.
Sure. My question is with regard to the additional programmability that you're proposing to bring in with respect to the CBDC pilot. The question has been there since the beginning when this topic was DG Ravi Shankar had introduced. Doesn't this go against the fungibility of money if the intent is to make CBDC the equivalent of paper currency? And if you introduce specific restrictions on usage, does the fungibility factor not go opposite to that?
No, we are not imposing a restriction. I think we are making it more flexible, but let DG Ravi Shankar take that question.
Thank you. Shifting to me. So, I'll give a more formal answer, I think, but the best way to think about it is when a family puts some currency notes in a package to be used for, let's say, groceries during the month. Doesn't mean that the fungibility of the currency is lost. It's just that until that spending happens, it can be used for no other purpose. I'm just giving you as an example to be able to think on what we mean by fungibility.
what we mean by programmability. When you do programmability, for a moment, fungibility is on hold. We have to realize that it's a facility that we are providing the currency. Again, by way of an example, let's suppose that a school has given some money to a student who won a prize to buy books in a particular shop. So the student can only use this money to buy books in that shop. That's intended. Supposing the student goes and buys that book, he cannot use it for any other purpose. As soon as the book is purchased and the currency goes to the bookshop owner, it again becomes fungible. So it's only for that period that fungibility is limited. Supposing he doesn't spend, it goes back to the school. Fungibility is restored. So it is a way of controlling expenditure that you do not get unless it's digital, and that you do not get unless it's a token. It's a facility that is there, will use, and the facility will typically be agreed by both the recipient as well as the person who puts that condition. So no, to give a very short answer, it doesn't militate against the programmability, doesn't militate against fungibility. It's only a specific use binding. Thank you.
And to extend that reply further, imagine a situation where, later on, when CBDC is fully implemented at a later date, if the government wants to give some cash support to certain individuals for a specific purpose, programmability will be useful in such situations, so that the money, the cash which is going from government to such persons can be used for specific purposes. So therefore, it's typical for every, it is typical for every household in the beginning of the month to do their own budget and set aside money, one envelope for school fees, one envelope for electricity bills, and it happens. It's a common thing which happens in large number of households. Yeah, next.
Thank you, sirs. I will request Manojit Saha from Business Standard.
Thank you, sir. So I again go back to the para 21 on liquidity. So you said stance is with respect to rates and incomplete transmission. Does that mean that you are creating elbow room to do liquidity operations, OMO purchase, to infuse liquidity, because March is going to be very tight, and then then such liquidity operation will not be seen out of sync with the stance. So you're separating the stance from liquidity management, and you're saying it is only on rates. Does that give you elbow room to do OMO purchase when liquidity will be very tight in March?
You see, what we have attempted to do today is to, clarify and clearly state that do not read the stance of monetary policy in terms of excess liquidity prevailing or deficit liquidity prevailing. That's not the point. Liquidity plays a secondary role to support monetary policy transmission. That is, there is a monetary policy, there is a repo rate. Liquidity situation in the market, I think that is what the Deputy Governor said in the beginning itself. You clarified that we try to keep the liquidity at a level wherein the overnight call rate, which is the operating target of monetary policy, remains around the repo rate. In the first part of this year, due to various exogenous factors, there was a lot of liquidity. So we conducted, sort of repo auctions, variable rate repo auctions, but market took time to adjust. And market also, banks, individual banks make their own analysis of the liquidity situation. And that analysis by the banks also varies within a day. You look at yesterday or was it day before? We did 2 VRRR auctions. Both. The response to the first one was very low. I think some 4,000 crores. Yeah. But then same day we did one more and we got a response of 27,000 crores. So Between morning auction, when the banks offered 4,000 crores, and to a subsequent auction in the afternoon, the banks offered 27,000 crores. So therefore, due to various autonomous factors, liquidity situation has been fluctuating in the market. Banks make their own assessments. Banks also take their own decision. Markets and banks, and meaning the banks and the markets, take time to adjust to the evolving liquidity situation. So far as the RBI is concerned, we will remain active, we will remain nimble in our liquidity management. What instruments we will utilize, that will depend on the prevailing situation, which will come up from time to time. I cannot say that we will use this and not use this. All we have several instruments at our disposal. Depending on situation, we will use the most appropriate instrument.
Also, let me ask one thing very straight.
Other people also. So I'll move on to Mr. Brijesh Kumar from Z Business News.
सर मेरा सवाल होगा, आपने जो हिडन कॉस्ट की बात कही है कि हिडन कॉस्ट लोन में, तो हिडन कॉस्ट में आपका फीडबैक क्या, हिडन कॉस्ट में आप क्या कहना चाहते हैं? प्रोसेसिंग फीस की बात करना चाहते हैं, या जब वो ये कहते हैं कि अगर आप कोई प्रॉपर्टी ले रहे हैं तो जो लॉयर के चार्जेस हैं, या जो आर्किटेक्ट के चार्जेस हैं, या जो इंश्योरेंस के चार्जेस हैं, जो एक तरह से वो मैंडेटरी कर देते हैं, तो इस हिडन कॉस्ट में क्या चीजें हैं, और क्या एक यूनिफॉर्म फॉर्मेट होगा जो सारे बैंक को फॉलो करना होगा?
इसलिए कि हिडन कॉस्ट टर्म मैंने यूज नहीं किया, हिडन कॉस्ट मैंने बिल्कुल नहीं किया। अभी जो बैंक जो लोन सैंक्शन करते हैं, टर्म शीट में सारे चार्जेस स्पेसिफाइड है, सारे चार्जेस, प्रोसेसिंग फी कितना होगा, आपका क्या क्या फीस होगा, क्या क्या चार्जेस होगा, सारे स्पेसिफाइड है। लेकिन एक ऑर्डिनरी बोरोवर जो है, एक कॉमन बोरोवर जो है, वो दिखा गया है, आई मीन एक्सपीरियंस से पता लगता है कि वो पूरा जो टर्म शीट जो है, टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस, वो 2-3 पेज का या 4-5 पेज का है, कोई पढ़ता नहीं है। वो देख लेते हैं कि 5% में या 10% में लोन मिल रहा है तो ले लेते हैं लोन। बाकी सारे चीज टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस में है, कस्टमर्स उसको सही तरह से पढ़ते नहीं है। तो इसीलिए हमने माइक्रो फाइनेंस लेंडिंग में, डिजिटल लेंडिंग में ये ऑलरेडी मैंडेट किया हुआ है कि एक सिंपल सा की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट, जिसमें कि उसमें फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी दिया है हमने बैंकों को। वन मेजर थिंग जिसमें हमने ये कहा है कि एनुअलाइज्ड ऑल इंक्लूसिव इंटरेस्ट रेट बताना चाहिए। आपका इंटरेस्ट रेट मान लीजिए 5% हो सकता है, बट अपफ्रंट आप एक फी पे कर रहे हैं, मान लीजिए 1,000 रुपया, वो 1,000 रुपया मैं आज दे रहा हूँ, लोन 5 साल के लिए है, वो 1,000 रुपया 5 साल में देने के बजाय मैं अपफ्रंट दे रहा हूँ, उसका एनुअलाइज्ड इंटरेस्ट रेट ज्यादा होगा। तो इसीलिए ये हमेशा कॉमन जो बोरोवर है उनके समझ में नहीं आता है। तो इसीलिए क्लैरिटी के लिए, ट्रांसपेरेंसी के लिए ये हमने मैंडेट किया है, ये कस्टमर इंटरेस्ट में है। अभी भी बैंक्स वो इंफॉर्मेशन दे रहे हैं, कोई हिडन कॉस्ट नहीं है, कुछ हाइड नहीं किया है। तो लेट अस बी वेरी क्लियर, the bank's terms and conditions are very transparent in the sense that all information is given, but experience ये है कि हम लोग पढ़ते नहीं हैं। तो इसीलिए एक सिंपल सा टर्म शीट उनको की फैक्ट स्टेटमेंट हमने मैंडेट किया है, purely in customers' interest, and I am sure banks will encourage it because the banks also are interested in, the banks are long-term players, so they are not short-term operators.
सर बट कुछ फैक्ट्स ऐसे हैं जो, सर कुछ फैक्ट्स ऐसे हैं जो नहीं होते हैं।
नहीं, नो सेकंड क्वेश्चन, आई एम जस्ट
ऐसे ही जैसे गवर्नर ने बताया, ये हमने प्रिस्क्राइब करने की कोशिश की है बैंक्स को भी, रिटेल कस्टमर्स और एमएसएमईज के लिए ये की फैक्ट शीट भी मैंडेट किया जाएगा। साथ ही में इससे पहले भी आप देखते हैं कि क्रेडिट कार्ड के इश्यू में हमने वो मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट टर्म्स एंड कंडीशंस बताया था टू गिव ग्रेटर ट्रांसपेरेंसी, उसी हिसाब से ये भी हमने पॉलिसी अनाउंस किया है।
धन्यवाद सर। पीयूष शुक्ला फ्रॉम फाइनेंशियल एक्सप्रेस।
Good afternoon, Governor sir, DGs, Yogesh ji. Sir, just taking you back to where we started. DG sir said that there are various tools in Kitty with regard to PTM, how the future of course of action will be taken. Sir, very specifically, banks are becoming very hesitant to actually partner with this bank, Paytm Payments Bank, for shifting their customers and their merchants in one go. They are saying that we need regulatory approval for that. So will you provide that, and will you allow the sale of their wallet to other potential payments bank?
It will be very difficult to provide any hypothetical answers at this point in time. So, as I said, that we are there's still time that is provided for customers to continue to access the services that is provided. So during this period, we will see what else needs to be done, and keeping, as Governor also said, that we keep the customer in the center of what needs to be done. So we will take appropriate steps. So the second part of your question, in terms of what the other banks will have to do, each of them, it's a business decision, and they have got to carry out the required due diligence as per their laid down board approved policies. And I'm sure that they will carry out that if they have got to do a partnership. So that's something which we will not comment at this point in time. But what tool and shape it will take is not something which we would like to speculate at this point in time. We may wait for the FAQs, which will give you more clarity.
Sorry, so banks don't need regulatory approval for taking on board the Paytm customers, is it?
It's very specific to a particular item. I think it's better for you to wait for the FAQs. As Governor
Please
said,
be
we will-
patient.
Yeah.
Let the FAQ come next week. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Swati Bhatt Chete from Reuters.
Thank you, sir. Governor, today you've said that next year's growth is projected at 7%. Nominal GDP growth as per the budget is projected at 10.5. I mean, I don't know if my maths is wrong, but effectively that would mean inflation is at around 3.5% next year. Is that right? Are you being a bit too optimistic about growth, or is the government underplaying growth and being very modest in their projections? Thank you.
So I think you take that question. Yeah. Because he likes to play these balls.
No, I will not venture to answer for the government. But my understanding of this is that what goes into the nominal GDP is not CPI inflation, it's the GDP deflator. And GDP deflator is always a weighted combination of CPI and WPI. Now, the WPI has been in deflation for most part of this year and is just emerging out of deflation. So that must be the reason.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Mayur Shetty from Times of India.
Governor, in the development measures, you spoke about reviewing the AEPS, and some banks have come out with warnings of how
EPS.
the Aadhaar-enabled payments.
Oh, AEPS.
Yeah,
Okay. Huh.
yeah. And some banks have come out with warnings on how fingerprints can be cloned using silicon. Is that what's caused this thing? And also, since OTP is also being reviewed, does it mean that the traditional forms of KYC are the best option for regulated entities?
No, OTP is not being reviewed. What I'm saying is that over the years, it so happens that OTP has become the most popular and commonly used AFA, that additional factor of authentication. But with the movement of time, various other technologies and methods have come up. So we want to just tell the players in the field that there are other methods also. And please, and RBI will be agnostic to them. As long as they're, sound methods, the banks and institutions are free to adopt them. But I think let DG Ravi Shankar take the other part of the question with regard to the Aadhaar APS. Yeah.
You sort of gave the answer in your question itself. It's basically to ensure that since this is being used in rural and such areas a lot, it's important that the safety of these transactions is ensured. Now, with the passage of time, as in the case of additional factor of authentication, we can use various technologies to do it. So that is essentially the position here. All touch point operators will go through a standardized, safe, and secure onboarding process. We can add, we possibly can, as we have indicated, we can also add other factors into it. For example, the switch on has to be done by the customer instead of it being pre-available on the system, or it can have geo limits beyond which it cannot operate. Whatever is required for the customers. The idea is that as Reserve Bank has always been placing a lot of emphasis on the security of digital transactions, which we believe is key to ensuring customer adoption, especially customers who are not savvy digitally. But this is an effort in that direction to improve the security of transactions.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Hitesh Vyas from Indian Express.
Sir, hi, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, there is an expectation that the stance would be changed to neutral, sir. What are the preconditions for stance to become neutral?
I cannot give a forward guidance on that. I think when when such a thing happens, we will explain, how it is. But you see, I'll tell you, the evolving situation continues to be very volatile and uncertain. You look at the commentaries coming out from the central banks, mostly of advanced countries. Sometimes, they appear to be giving giving a forward guidance in one particular direction. Sometimes the market interprets the next direction, guidance to be in a different direction. So therefore, at the moment, we are not giving any forward guidance with regard to stance or rate, when we will there's a talk of when the central banks world over will cut rates. So, and as I have said, markets are, overshooting the, running ahead of the central banks. So I think preconditions I will not be able to specify unless Vijay Michael Patra wants to comment anything on that. So because, these are very volatile times. And so therefore it's better to wait. And when something like that happens, we will explain it appropriately.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Gopika Gopakumar from the Mint.
Thank you, Yogesh, sir. Good afternoon, Governor. Considering that your inflation forecast for next year is at 4.5% and GDP at 7%, and you're saying that RBI needs to be vigilant in the last mile of disinflation, does it rule out a rate cut in FY25? And secondly, on the Paytm issue, what is a larger issue? Is it the KYC or is it something related to the ownership or interlinkage between a regulated and a non-regulated entity? Because if it is KYC, then does RBI need to relook at the minimum regulations around the minimum KYC accounts? That is my second question.
No, again, an entity, an institution or an entity specific details we would not like to spell out. And let me leave it at that, because I cannot really share. It's a bilateral engagement between the RBI and the regulated entity. The regulations are there in their place. The regulations are robust. There is no need for, it is not a case where there was a regulatory deficiency or there was a regulatory correction required. It's an issue of compliance with various parameters. You mentioned about KYC, but compliance with so many aspects. Again, let me not specify the details. So regulations are there. Regulations are robust. And it's a situation where we are focused on the compliance not being there with the regulatory requirements.
Thank you, sir.
The first question.
Sorry?
First question.
No, on the rate hike and the pause, I cannot say that. I think only time will tell. Only time will tell, when something like that will happen.
So, thank you, sir. Last few questions we will take. मैं अब आमंत्रित करूंगा अनुराग शाह, ET Now स्वदेश.
हाँ, नमस्ते सर. थैंक यू योगेश सर. नमस्ते सर. सर, पिछले कुछ महीनों पहले जब आपने पर्सनल लोन पे चिंता जताई थी और उसके बाद रिस्क वेटेज वगैरह बढ़ाया गया था, तो क्या अब भी उतनी आप चिंतित है? वहां चिंता कम हुई है? और क्या सर आपका मानना है जिस तरह से पर्सनल लोन बांटा जाता है वो भी एक देखने की चीज है? हर किसी को, चाहे बड़ा आदमी हो छोटा आदमी हो, दिन में 2-3 कॉल तो आते ही है पर्सनल लोन के, जबरदस्ती इसके लिए. तो ये भी एक तरीके पे भी क्या आप मतलब, क्योंकि टेलीकम्युनिकेशन तो आपके हाथ में नहीं है, बट फिर भी सब तरीके जिस तरह से बांटा जाता है. और सर बाकी दूसरा सवाल जिसकी सबसे ज्यादा चर्चा हुई उस हिंदी के दर्शकों के लिए जो करोड़ों मर्चेंट्स और ग्राहक है उनके लिए सर, क्योंकि सर आप जो बात बोलेंगे वो एक भरोसा देती है देश की जनता के अंदर. तो सर क्या भविष्य में जब पूरा ये मामला हो जाएगा तो अगर डिस्ट्रप्शन आता है तो आरबीआई वहां मजबूती से खड़ा रहेगा इस मामले से जुड़ा हुआ, और क्या आने वाले दिनों में कुछ और क्लैरिटी भी आप इस पूरे मामले में देंगे?
किस मामले में?
ये पेमेंट बैंक की जो चर्चा हुई है सर, ये
नहीं, मैंने तो सारे एक्सप्लेनेशन मतलब अंग्रेजी में वैसे दे दिया है।
हाँ,
हिंदी
वो
में भी
हिंदी के
एक
दर्शकों
मिनट,
के लिए।
हिंदी में भी एक कुछ एक दो क्वेश्चन आई थिंक शायद यहाँ से आया था,
नहीं
हमने
आया
हिंदी
सर।
में बताया। नहीं, मैं हिंदी के भाषा में ये सबको आश्वासन देना चाहता हूँ कि भारत का जो फाइनेंशियल सेक्टर है, जो बैंकिंग सेक्टर है, ओवरऑल फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम बहुत मजबूत है, बहुत मजबूत है, उसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है। आप बैंकों की हो या नॉन बैंकिंग फाइनेंस कंपनी एनबीएफसीज का हो, किसी का परफॉर्मेंस आप देख लीजिए, बहुत ओवरऑल पैरामीटर्स आप अगर देखेंगे सिस्टमिक लेवल पे और इंडिविजुअल लेवल में पैरामीटर्स आर स्ट्रॉन्ग, और इंडिया का फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम बहुत मजबूत है, ग्रोथ साउंड है, ग्रोथ भी अभी अच्छा मोमेंटम है। लेकिन हम एज ए सुपरवाइजर हम रेगुलेटेड एंटिटीज को सुपरवाइज करते रहते हैं, और हर एक सुपरविजन में हमारा ये कोशिश रहता है कि पहले जो सुपरवाइज्ड एंटिटी है, बैंक हो या एनबीएफसी हो या कोई भी फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन हो, उनके साथ डायरेक्टली हम एंगेज करें, डायरेक्टली उनसे बात करें और उनको कहे कि आपका ये खामियां है, यहाँ यहाँ आपने रेगुलेटरी वायलेशंस आपने किया है, इसको आप सही करिए, आप सही दिशा में आपके जो बैंक हो या एनबीएफसी हो उसको आगे बढ़ाइए, और हमारा रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइन से आप यहाँ यहाँ आपका डिविएशन हो रहा है, इसको करेक्ट करिए, सही कदम उठाइए। और उसके लिए हम काफी टाइम भी देते हैं। जब एक्शन नहीं लिया, ये मैं जनरल सेंस में कह रहा हूं, कोई एंटिटी स्पेसिफिक रिप्लाई ये नहीं है, और जहां एक्शन टाइमली नहीं लिया जाता है या इफेक्टिव एक्शन हमको दिखाई नहीं देता है, वहां पे हमको पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट में, कस्टमर इंटरेस्ट में, डिपॉजिटर्स इंटरेस्ट में, ओवरऑल फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम के इंटरेस्ट पे कुछ कदम उठाना जरूरी हो जाता है। और वो कदम हम इसीलिए उठाते हैं क्योंकि रिजर्व बैंक जो है वो फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी और फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम का कस्टोडियन है। रिजर्व बैंक हमेशा इस मामले में कमिटेड रहा है, आगे जाके कमिटेड रहेगा, और आपने कहा मजबूत से खड़ा है, रिजर्व बैंक बिल्कुल मजबूत से खड़ा है। थैंक यू
सर। पहला सवाल सर, पहला सवाल नहीं नहीं सर।
Sir, Pratigya from Informist Media and then Anshika from Hindu Business Line. Two questions, sir. Last two questions.
Good afternoon, Governor. So, public debt has been high for 3 years now because of COVID spending by governments across the world. So, what risks does RBI see specifically now to raise this as a risk factor, and what are the spillover risks for this for India?
You see, I was raising it in a global context, not in the context of India. The India part of the information I have given just by way of information. But my reply was in the global context. You see the footnotes of my monetary policy statement, all the supporting data is given. By the end of this decade, global debt to GDP of EMEs, advanced economies all put together is expected to exceed 100%. आज के तारीख में, on today's date and in future, very surprisingly, you will notice that the debt to GDP of the advanced economies are actually much higher than the debt to GDP levels of the emerging market economies. और फिस्कल डेफिसिट, कई सारे एडवांस्ड इकोनॉमीज हैं जहां पे फिस्कल डेफिसिट अभी भी बहुत अधिक है, 7%, 8% उस रेंज में है। सो फिस्कल डेफिसिट के लिए वो बोरो करते रहेंगे। जब बोरो करेंगे, अगर वो रिजर्व करेंसी है तो उसमें मनी सब आप जो व्हाट यू कॉल एज creating new money, printing notes. So therefore these are kind of things, if the debt has to be sustainable for the long-term stability of the global financial system. So therefore, I have raised this as an issue which can create a future, which can become a future source of stress to the global financial system. So far as India is concerned, you please again look at my statement. I provide the data in the footnote. The IMF fiscal monitor gives out the data for India. The debt to GDP for India had gone up to 88%. General government, states and center had gone up to 88% during the COVID year of 2020 because of the various fiscal measures which were undertaken. And and it projects how by 2028 it's likely to, it has already come around about 81% or so. By 2028, according to the IMF's fiscal monitor, it is expected to be around 80% or so. So that is the path which I just mentioned by way of information.
Thank you, sir. Anshika, last.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. So this is not about Paytm, but about UPI. Basically, there were talks about restricting, capping the market share of each app in terms of the UPI transaction volume share. We've seen the deadline was extended and the market share has only gone up for these platforms. Now that we're seeing the Paytm-led migration happen to some of these platforms like Google Pay and Phone Pay, their market share is only increasing. Is there a concern regarding, say, over-reliance on a few specific platforms? And does that raise the risk of them becoming too big? And could the RBI then look at a structure of systemically important PA entities or something like that? And because I'm the last person, just one small clarification. You mentioned the overnight 2 VRRs in the day, 2 VRRs. Is there a specific amount or range that the RBI has in mind that you would prefer that banks not park their funds beyond that in SDF?
I think DG Ravi Shankar followed by DG Michael Patra. Two questions, but
Yes.
you said last person.
Thank
So
you.
the last mile in the queue should always have priority. So last person. So I think DG Ravi Shankar followed by Michael Patra.
Yes, since it's the last question, I'll keep it very short. The limit is from the point of view of of diffusion of risk in case some entity doesn't become available for whatever reason at any point in time. But to take it to too big, to fail sort of is probably not appropriate here, because they are just third-party app providers. The limit of 30% funds don't go through them. So the system is not threatened, except that there could be a temporary inconvenience in terms of shifting over to an additional system. Having said that, it will be for the market to decide. The market forces have to play out such that this percentage is more evenly decided. We will not be interfering into them in the market process to ensure that the 30% or something is. In any case, it's an NPCI requirement. We'll have more players to come in. Hopefully with technology, we'll get some more players and that percentage can be maintained. We have time till the end of this year anyway.
We don't have any preconceived limit on how much they put in SDF. The SDF by its very nature is a standing facility, and it's at the discretion of market participants as to how much they want to use. As to why we did 2 VRRs during the day, we assess market conditions and bidding behavior. And we've in the first auction, we realized that there were like bids which were higher than the amount we offered. We offered 50, we got a lot more. So we thought that probably they would like to park more in the VRRR, which is more remunerative than the SDF. And so we did the second one.
Yeah, I think DG Swaminathan wants to
Just one clarification on, because the question came around the UPI apps. See, this particular action is against the payment bank. It's not to do with, not to be confused with the payment app, which is run, right? That's okay. We will clarify through the FAQs, but just to clarify in terms of your question, just as a supplemental information, that as an app is not impacted by this action.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sirs. With this, we come to a formal close of the press conference, the first press conference of the year, and looking forward to a few more. All the best to you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.